Hi, this is Katie Bomberger, and I'm going to talk to you today about formative assessment, and I'm going to be discussing primarily strategy number 5 today with you. Strategy number 5 uses evidence of student learning to determine what steps that we need to take next. This is done after a lesson has been taught and the teachers have gone over student work, and they look at the work and decide what they need to do next. In order for teachers to be able to understand what students are not getting, it takes a lot of time and a lot of experience. And one of the big takeaways that I got from this chapter was part of the quote that I have here. Over the course of the first year, I discovered that there are 1,000 ways for learners to not get a lesson, and that's something that takes experience. The feedback loop is a necessary part of your instruction, and this is a process where teachers have taught a lesson and students do work in response to that, and the teacher then looks at the work and decides what they need to do. It helps them know where their students are and choose what the best teaching strategy is moving forward. So the different types of learning needs that can be identified are incomplete understanding, flaws in reasoning, and misconceptions. And the quote that I have here is, the first step in figuring out students' learning needs is to be able to identify the types of errors they're likely to make. Incomplete understanding means they just don't have a full understanding yet. They know what the main idea is, but they may just be using it slightly incorrectly, and that just takes practice. The next type, a little bit more information on, is flaws in reasoning. We need to help students understand the error in their reasoning, especially if it's some multiple step problems that they're doing, and reinforce the learning target and revisit some of those strong and weak examples. An example is they may decide to divide instead of multiply when doing problem solving. Errors due to misconceptions. Students come to your classroom with many misconceptions about different topics, and it's our job to identify them. This is where they've learned something incorrectly at home, perhaps, or in the world around us. And we have to give them actual experiences to be able to overcome these misconceptions. And they actually have to make a new connection in their brain to help it stay in their long-term memory and not just be replaced again by the former misconception. To identify learning needs, we can do a bunch of different things, but two of those are to use learning trajectories and to use diagnostic assessments. Learning trajectories can be learning progressions, construct maps, deconstructed standards where they're broken down into a couple different areas of learning just for one standard. And then it gives the teachers kind of like a pathway to figure out how the learner can develop over time. And it can help us determine tools, lessons, strategies that are going to be most beneficial. And I like this quote from the book: "Not all learning is linear, and not all students follow the same trajectory to attain mastery." Diagnostic assessments we can use. They can be multiple choice, they can be open response, and we can use distractors that are common mistakes for students. Written response items are sometimes preferable over to multiple choice, and they're used scoring a rubric or a list, and the rubrics can be task specific or general. To identify learning needs with a performance task, it needs to use a rubric, and we need to be able to use a general rubric that's used for different topics, and it should be given to students at the beginning of instruction. Questioning and dialogue to identify learning needs. This is a big one. Just by talking to your students and being around the room is a very powerful way to identify what their needs are. Ways to diagnose learning needs through think time. Calling on them. You can use random calling, cold calling. Listen to students' conversation during work time and be present. To avoid reteaching, we can use clear learning targets, examples of strong and weak work, and give them with a list of common misconceptions. The takeaways are the feedback loop helps teachers determine learning needs and next steps. The 3 types of learning. We can use learning trajectories and diagnostic assessments to identify next steps. They can be multiple choice or open response, and dialogue is a key component in recognizing student learning needs. We also need to be aware of common errors in student understanding and realize that students may misunderstand information in a wide variety of ways. My conclusion is that you need to create a classroom where there is acceptance of mistakes, the ability to take time and correct them, and the knowledge that additional practice is the key to success. And at the end, there is a quote from the book. Once again, thank you for listening, and I hope that this has provided you with additional information on strategy number 5.